Chapter 2. The movie Daniel took me to see was gory, horrible, and absolutely hysterical. I wiped away tears, which had leaked over from laughing so hard, as we walked out of the theater. Daniel smiled at my laughter, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. I could tell he was trying hard to act natural for my benefit. I wasn't fooled. Even as he smiled at me and my laughter, I sensed the tension in his body. Outside, rain poured down in great sheets of noise, the storm having released its furious power while we were inside. The sheets of water were so thick I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me against the dark evening. The transition from the light we had walked into the theater in and the dark of the storm we had walked out to made me feel as if we had went in during one life and had come out during another. I was willing to run to the car with Daniel, not minding the rain, but he stopped me. "I'll bring the car around. No sense in both of us getting wet." He kissed my neck and ran out into the storm before I could argue. I tucked my hands in my pockets, annoyed he was being so pushy, and leaned against the cement building to wait. I watched the rain fall and tried to make sense of his mood and the strange sinking sensation that mood left in my stomach. As I waited, the door to my left opened, and I heard 2 voices I could have lived without hearing for the rest of my summer, or even the rest of my life. Alex hung out with them sometimes, but I made a point not to. Seeing them at school was bad enough. "It's not funny, Mark," Jennifer said. "Is so. Didn't you see her fall?" Mark called happily, stupidly. An image of a larger girl, an underclassman from our school, flashed into my mind as he replayed it in his rather small brain. In memory, she tripped over an uneven bit in the carpet and face-planted right in front of Mark. He thought it better than the action movie they had just left. At least, Jennifer was showing some humanity. I sunk back into the wall, hoping they wouldn't notice me, afraid to get angry and do something I regretted. I should have known better. Jennifer looked back at the girl. From her thoughts, I knew the girl was her cousin, and caught sight of me. She stopped and tugged on Mark's hand to make him do the same. He hadn't noticed me. He had been too busy trying to think of ways to get Jennifer to go get the car instead of him. Claire? Crap. "Hey guys," I said, my eyes wrecking the rain for Daniel's car. Jennifer's eyes were wide with surprise. "What are you doing? Sulking in the shadows like that? It's way creepy." "Hiding from you?" "Daniel's getting the car. He didn't want me to get wet, I guess." "He's here?" Mark asked cautiously, looking over his shoulder casually, but I sensed his trepidation. Daniel and Mark had argued over me once and didn't talk anymore. Mark was bitter, thinking his friend had chosen a girl before friendship. What was it? Bros before hoes? It didn't help Mark's feelings that Mark was entirely aware that should they fight, Daniel would win hands down. It just made him feel bitter. "Yes, he is," I said. More thought from the pair followed my answer. What in the world does he see in her? I guess she really is off limits now. I'd like to get with her just once, but chances are she's into freaky stuff. My eyebrows lifted. I wasn't the one imagining the things Mark was imagining about us. He definitely had a problem, more than a few, from the looks of things. My blood pressure rose, and my hands clenched in response as his thoughts pounded into my brain. Killing them both during a fit of irritation in a crowded movie theater would only complicate things. I didn't need a murder charge on top of the other worries I had riding on my shoulders. Taking deep breaths to calm my anger, I looked past the pair again, but the rain was too thick. Where was Daniel? Of all the times to be late. Do you have any plans for the summer? Jennifer asked over an awkward beat of silence. I might be going to LA to see my mom's best friend, I said, happy to have a distraction. We were unsure if we could go with everyone after us. I was all for Daniel, Sam, and Alex coming along, but Ellen didn't want to put Naomi, her best friend and de facto aunt to me, in a dangerous situation. I could see her point, but I really wanted Alex to see my birth city, and I really wanted Daniel to meet Naomi. That's cool, Jennifer replied in fake excitement. Her question had just been a cover so she could talk about her own plans, a trip to Alaska. She rambled on about her plans, and I looked past her again. Really? Where was he? Mark caught me looking, and his lips curled up into a smirk. The scowl on my face was no longer contained. I glowered at them in hatred's cousin's loathing. Finally, a car horn sounded from under the covered area, and a beautiful black car beckoned me. My knight in shining Audi. Thank God. I hope you have fun on your trip, I said, circling around them. See ya. I sprinted to the car, not waiting for the replies. Their mean thoughts trailed after me, but I didn't care. I was just happy to get away from them. Sorry, Daniel apologized as soon as I was in the car. I didn't mean to leave you to them. What were you doing? I asked. Talking on the phone, he said vaguely. Is this later? I asked, referring back to his promise to talk about his method of finding out Marcus's plans. His face said the phone call had been about something dangerous, the sort of dangerous things he had been keeping from me. No. He turned up the radio to block me out and kept his hands firmly planted on the steering wheel to avoid my touch. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought he was frightened about something and that he thought telling me would only make it worse. I turned down Artie Shaw, his jazz, a welcome distraction, any other time. Are we really going to play this game all night? I asked. Which game? Life? I hear it's hours of fun. Until you lose, I said. I was thinking more like poker. There is a thing in it where you pretend like you have one set of cards when you are really holding another. They have a name for it, even. Bluffing. Really? He asked, his mouth twitching. That's what they call it on Celebrity Poker. Alec's been watching it. I see, he said seriously. I'm sure you do. I crossed my arms and waited, full to the brim with determination to get to the bottom of his weirdness. He turned the radio back up in response, mutely refusing to answer my questions. I turned away and stared out the passenger window. He knew how I felt about him keeping things from me, so why the secrets? Was he contemplating doing something I wouldn't like? Or was he simply keeping secrets out of habit? The blurred lights of the downtown faded into the tall mountains, which rose beyond the veil of rain as we made our way back home. The city life was Asheville, such as it was, quickly fell behind us, and the forest wrapped around us, closing us in. I watched as row after row of dark trees faded out of view of the glare of Daniel's bright headlights. Finally, he sighed and reached out to turn the radio down again. "Sorry," he said. He ran a hand through his midnight hair, then brought the hand back to the steering wheel so he could tap on it impatiently. "Yeah?" I asked. "Sorry wasn't what I was looking for. We need to talk about something," he continued, "but not right now. I want this night to be ours. Please? Promise you'll tell me what's going on?" I demanded. "I promise. Now stop scowling before I do something desperate." "Desperate how?" I asked playfully. "Something that involves total humiliation on my part," he said. "Like what?" "Like letting Beatrice get out her photo album," he replied. "Is a whole album?" I asked. He nodded, his face rueful at the admission. "Interesting. I'll have to remember that," I said. "Don't think I don't know where Ellen keeps your box of memories. I believe she calls it," he said. I imagined him seeing the picture of me naked in the bath while I made a fort out of rubber duckies and washcloths, and shuddered. There was no way I was ever going to let Ellen pull that out from blackmail hell. "That's what I thought," he said, smiling at me. "I think a truce is in order," I began. My words were cut off as the horizon in front of us lit up like a Christmas tree. Lightning flashed between the mountains, not once, but 3 times in a row. Even though the metal of the car and the distance separating us, I could feel the aftershocks of electricity. The rain increased its tempo on the hood of our car as the light faded back into dark. The inside of the car suddenly felt charged and alive. It was a feeling I associated with Margaret when she got angry. The car started to drift to the shoulder of the road as the thunder rippled out in furious sound. I pulled my eyes away from the storm to look at Daniel and saw that his eyes had turned as distant as the moon. I grabbed the steering wheel to prevent us from wrapping around one of the trees, which closed the road in. Our speed made the jerk very dangerous. The car fish-tailed as I thought to right the car, but Daniel didn't take his foot off the accelerator. From his body language and his blank, far-away stare, I knew he was lost in the future. We swerved again as I fought to right the fishtail, and his eyes cleared. He took control of the car with a funny jerk, and his eyes narrowed. Another surge of lightning lit up the rain that was sheeting like hammers against the earth. "What is it?" I asked. His foot slowed on the accelerator. "I just saw us in the forest." King's Cross was surrounded by nothing but forest, so that wasn't hard to imagine, and didn't explain the worry on his face. His visions could sometimes be days into the future, but mostly he saw only minutes. In minutes, though, we wouldn't be home. His foot let up on the accelerator even more as his eyes searched the road ahead and behind for signs of danger. We were at 50 now, inching towards 40. Another sizzle of lightning rippled out through the night. Only this was much closer. With a loud boom, a street lamp exploded directly behind us. This is starting to feel rather mercenary, I said around the lump in my throat as I turned back to watch the lamp fall to the road. "You think?" Daniel growled as he searched for the person behind the attack. A light appeared out of the rain. It was small and dim, barely able to combat the darkness of the rain. The light passed us in the opposite lane of traffic, and I saw a sleek motorcycle tearing up the road. I turned to watch its progress, amazed anyone would be riding in this rain, and saw the light arch around on the wet pavement as the driver turned around. The motorcyclist honed in on our bumper, recovering from the turn quickly. "He's crazy," I said. "That's one word you could use," Daniel replied, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. "Is he a seeker?" I asked. Daniel didn't answer. Lightning danced in front of us on the road, and the motorcyclist swerved around to my side of the car, riding on the shoulder. Through my window, I saw an Asian man with shoulder-length hair and coal-black eyes. I noticed that the rain drenched the road around him, but left him inexplicably dry. As we connected eyes, he smiled. I shivered at the evil behind the smile, but it was Daniel who wasn't in the mood for smiles. He jerked the car toward the motorcyclist without any warning. The man's eyes widened at the jerk, and his bike wobbled dangerously on the wet pavement as he moved out of the way of the car. Not able to control the bike, he careened off the road, his tail lights disappearing into the dark forest. While I was busy watching the man's crash, Daniel was still in motion, sensing more than I had. He moved across the space dividing us, ripping out his seat belt in the process. With his momentum carrying him, he used his shoulder to ram my door. It tore out of the frame of the car easily with the hit. Daniel wrapped me safely in his arms, maneuvering mid-air so that I was on top of him on the door. With a hefty bump, we hit the pavement. The door, our only protection from a serious case of road rash. Sparks flew around us as we gouged out chunks of asphalt, traveling far because of the speed of the car. After a lifetime of being aware of nothing beyond Daniel's arms around me and the heat of sparks as they flew, our door stopped on the shoulder of the road. Dazed, I looked at the car we had so unceremoniously left. A nightmare was in place of the car. More preciously, a night stalker was in the place of the car. Its claws ripped into the space Daniel's head had been only seconds ago with animal desire to kill. The creature finally realized its claws were grasping at air and growled in dissatisfaction. It turned slowly and inhaled deeply, trusting its noise to tell that what its limited eyesight couldn't. It didn't take long. Its red eyes brightened when it caught our scent. Its excited growl was deadly. Daniel jumped off our door to intercept the Night Stalker before it attacked us. Their meeting was Colossus, taking his first steps on Earth. They slammed into each other, the Night Stalker ripping and tearing at Daniel. Daniel was unbreakable as he wrestled with the Night Stalker, its size nothing compared to Daniel's strength. Against the broken metal of the door and the now shattered glass of the passenger window, I stood and started forward to try and help, feeling impossibly useless. I had managed to go superhuman once, but the strength of that night hadn't happened again. As I stood, my necklace, the one I had learned was my father's, pulsed with a steady glow of warmth, lighting with the worry I felt for Daniel. Before I could think of a way to help, to maybe use my necklace against the Night Stalker, Daniel and the Night Stalker, cheering and hitting each other with vengeful anger, rolled off into the woods, oblivious of anything that wasn't their fight. A divulge of lightning danced around the pavement at their departure. I was pushed back toward Daniel's car, which, with another strike of lightning, caught on fire, hemming me in. I was trapped in an impossible electrical storm, unable to see a clear path to safety. How could I fight something that was everywhere? From the light of the dull fire, which was fighting to live around the rain, I saw the motorcyclist step out of the woods casually, as if his bike hadn't just crashed. His coal-black eyes were trained on mine. Marcus made it sound so difficult. He went on and on about how the last team, his best seekers, had failed. Those were his family, his wife and daughter. Cassandra was not his first child, but she was invaluable to the organization. And Celine, well, she was what they had in mind when they coined the term fear. He took out a very large knife from the small of his back that would have made Crocodile Dundee jealous. It reflected back the light of the car fire. It was creepy and made me want to run away, but I had nowhere to go. I had an even less inclination to let him scare me. And now he sent you to get revenge, blah, 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 I said firmly, shutting away the fear. Can you skip to the dramatic part and get to the part where you try to kill me? He hasn't sent me to kill you, Eve. No, not to kill. Revenge is for people without vision, without purpose. He gestured with the knife negligently. You can look at this is an invitation to visit with the greatest watcher of all time. I'm going to have to decline, I said. He moved closer at my reply, bringing his inexplicable dryness with him. I'm really not asking, he said. A flicker of movement from the dark woods behind him caught my eye. Hope replaced the fear. It's good you are not asking, 'cause I have no intention of going. I prepared my body to move, coiled like a tightly wound spring. The man's eyes narrowed as I leaned forward, ready to run. Daniel had finished fighting the Night Stalker. He crossed the short distance between the man and the woods and attacked the man with a fast lunge. I spun out of the way as they fell to the ground and rolled beyond me, kicking and punching. Lightning shattered the space between us, throwing me to the ground. All my air whooshed out as I hit the ground, right on top of a shattered piece of metal from the car. My neck throbbed with painful fire, and automatic tears of pain welled into my eyes as I landed. I raised my head, everything swimming, and saw Daniel and the man now standing dance around the road. In the distance, another car sped toward us, heedless of the danger. The bright lights counted down the time we had left until an innocent got caught up in the chaos. I couldn't let that happen. Blood dripped from my neck, merging with the rain coursing down my body as I stood again. The sounds of their fight meshed with my throbbing head in a symphony of destructiveness. Every step was a battle against passing out. As I tried to make my way over to Daniel, to help him somehow, another flash of lightning hit the road, and Daniel and the Seeker were thrown apart. The Seeker ran into the darkness, the rain increasing to hide his passing. Daniel rolled to his feet and started forward, but he stopped before he had taken even 2 steps. He stood in the road for a minute, fighting against 2 powerful urges, panting heavily. His back remained tense, his fists clenched in his anger. His shirt was ripped in places, and his hair was plastered against his forehead in dark realms. I stumbled across the road to make sure he was okay, my ears ringing from the second lightning blast. He noticed the movement of my stumbling feet and ran to me, forgetting about his anger in an instant. The headlights down the road were much closer now. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes. No. I don't know," I said. He grabbed my hand, a spark dancing between our fingers. "We can't stay here," he told me. The headlights started to slow at the sight of the car fire, and the people's thoughts from inside reached out to graze my mind. I heard their panic as they, a couple, wondered if someone was hurt. They hadn't noticed us standing there. Yet Daniel tugged on my hand to get me moving, and we ran to the woods. We passed by a much smaller fire as we ran, the charred remains of the night stalker Daniel had killed. "This area isn't safe. The Seeker is in here somewhere," Daniel said, still all business as we walked. I agreed. My knees started to tremble from the hit to the skull. A trickle of the blood coursing down the back of my arms, down my hands, caught his attention. He stopped and looked at my arms, which the asphalt had grazed in my fall. "You are hurt." His worried face slid in and out of focus. He stepped around me to take a closer look and noticed the wound on my neck. I focused on the blurry trees as he disappeared from view, fighting against the urge to pass out. "You are really hurt," he said. "I thought we covered that," I asked. "I can't fix it here," he told me. "I'm going to call Jackson to pick us up. Do you think you can walk?" "Walk? No. Stand? No." I swayed, and he caught my arm. All the adrenaline from the fight had left my body, and I felt impossibly weak. He pulled a small knife out of his pocket and cut a strip of fabric from his shirt. He pushed it against the back of my head. "Hold this here," he commanded me. Not knowing what I was agreeing to, I held the fabric in place without argument. Daniel flipped open his phone and pressed the speed dial. He talked to Jackson for a long couple of minutes, forcing me to sit as he did. I sat on a low rock, wet with the passing rain, and kept staring at the trees. "He's going to meet us on a back road. I'll carry you," Daniel finally said, his conversation over. He helped me stand, then pulled me into his arms. He was gentle, but his touch made my neck hurt worse. Anything and everything made it hurt worse, including the soft which fluttered through the trees. I had no idea how long we walked. It felt like days. Water dripped from the trees above, and crickets and wildlife made music in the dark. The rain had passed with our attackers' departure, but the forest was still drenched with the storm. Daniel talked to me constantly to keep me conscious, not that I could have repeated back to him anything he said. As he talked, and I thought the darkness, a slow realization crept into my thoughts. Perhaps it was being on the edge of unconsciousness, or the loss of blood making me crazy. But I suddenly knew what I had to do. It was obvious. When Daniel set me down next to an old dirt road, I felt weak, but strangely alive. I knew what had to be done, and that gave me purpose.